All right, so let's jump into something any sports fan will love, and that's ESPN. We're going to do a deep dive on the history of this media giant.
From its, like, scrappy beginnings.
Yeah, all the way to its current battles to stay relevant, right?
Exactly. In this age of streaming. And, even if you're not a diehard sports fan, this deep dive has a ton of insights about the changing media landscape. Should be interesting for everyone, I think.
For sure. And we've got amazing source material. We're pulling from a conversation between, well, a pretty well-known media personality and a former ESPN employee. Talk about an insider perspective.
Yeah, no kidding. What makes it so interesting is that ESPN's not just a network, right?
Right.
It's like a cultural force.
Totally. It's shaped how we watch and talk about sports, even how athletes become stars.
For sure.
So where do we even start with a story as big as ESPN's? I'm thinking we start with the network's early days.
Okay, yeah.
Our insider source actually mentioned this noticeable culture shift.
Oh, really?
After Disney bought ESPN back in '96.
Interesting.
And the media personality in our material actually described this as a beautifully unpolished diamond being, transformed into a money-making machine.
I see.
It's clear that Disney's resources all of a sudden fueled ESPN's huge growth and helped solidify its dominance in sports broadcasting.
It makes sense.
But this transformation wasn't without its issues, right?
Yeah.
Our former ESPN employee kind of hinted at some
practices.
Yeah, from the good old days.
Yeah.
Practices that wouldn't exactly work today.
Oh, so there were some growing pains there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
There have even been books written about ESPN's culture in those early years.
Oh, wow.
And it sounds like the network, a lot of companies back then had to kind of adapt and evolve its HR practices to reflect, changing social norms.
Times change.
Right.
Things evolve.
It's wild to think about how a network so deeply ingrained in sports culture had to go through these internal shifts too.
Right.
But let's fast forward a bit. ESPN was on top of the world, just raking in money.
Crushing it.
And then, boom, the whole media landscape starts to change, dramatically.
Oh, yeah.
Cable subscriptions plummet.
Right.
Streaming platforms are on the rise. How did a giant like ESPN even handle this?
Well, it forced them to grow up in a way.
Okay.
They had to shift from this free-spending powerhouse to, a more mature, cost-conscious business.
Right.
That kind of change is never easy.
And we see that in some of ESPN's tough choices, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Our analyst brought up the closure of ESPN magazine.
Oh, right.
Which was a really, really high-quality publication.
It was. I loved that magazine.
But ultimately, it just couldn't survive the changing times.
It's sad, but it makes sense. The magazine's closure is kind of symbolic, I think, of what's happening to print media in general.
I agree.
Even top-notch content. It can become unsustainable if the money just isn't there.
Right.
Which brings us to, I think, ESPN's current big problem.
Yeah.
Finding its place in this world of streaming giants, right?
Exactly.
Like YouTube and Amazon.
It hasn't been easy for them.
Nope.
Losing the bid for NFL Sunday Ticket to YouTube was a huge blow.
Yeah, for sure. That was a major opportunity. And it just really highlights the fierce competition ESPN is up against in the streaming market.
It makes you wonder, can a traditional media company
Like ESPN.
Yeah, like ESPN really thrive in a world dominated by these tech giants?
It's David versus Goliath all over again.
Right. But can David pull off another win?
That's the question.
Well, they do have one powerful weapon left, live sports.
Yeah, it's true.
They're paying billions for broadcast rights to the NBA Finals, college football playoffs.
Yep.
Even the upcoming Super Bowl. That's got to count for something, don't you think?
It absolutely does. Live sports are ESPN's, their lifeblood. Even their biggest critics,
Yeah.
They can't resist tuning in for those huge events. It's appointment viewing.
Right.
In a world of on-demand, anything you want, whenever you want it.
Yeah.
Live sports create this sense of community, a shared experience you just can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, you nailed it. But even with that advantage, ESPN hasn't been totally immune to cultural shifts.
Oh, just not.
The commentator we're referencing brought up this thing they called woke stuff.
Good.
And its impact on ESPN.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's a complex issue, that's for sure. But I think it's clear that, without getting into specifics or, taking sides or anything, it's clear that these cultural shifts and social shifts
Yeah.
have really had a big impact on ESPN's programming and its relationship with its audience.
Right,
It's
right,
like
right.
they've had to walk this tightrope
Yeah.
trying to appeal to this diverse viewership
Right.
while navigating these changing cultural tides.
Mhm.
It's tough,
It's a reminder that these companies,
especially the big ones
yeah, especially ones as influential as ESPN, they operate in, well, in this larger
of
context.
society.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
They can't just ignore the conversations that are happening around them.
Right.
So we've got this media giant trying to figure out this whole streaming world
Yeah.
while dealing with these evolving cultural landscapes. But wait, there's another twist, right?
Oh. Oh, no.
Didn't our sources say something about ESPN possibly being sold?
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like Disney might be looking at another option, which is even more interesting, I think. A
Oh.
potential collaboration between ESPN, Fox, and NBC
Hold on. A team up.
to create a unified sports channel.
Oh, wait a second. That would be a massive shakeup. We're talking about like the 3 biggest sports networks. What would that even look like?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore in part 2 of this deep dive.
I can't wait.
We'll unravel this potential collaboration, talk about the possible benefits and drawbacks, and what it could mean for the future of sports on TV.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Okay, so we're back and ready to unpack this bombshell, this ESPN, Fox, and NBC thing.
Yeah.
That's huge. But is it good for viewers?
It's the big question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating to think about how this potential collaboration could change everything.
Yeah.
I mean, everything about how we watch sports.
Yeah.
On the surface, this unified channel, it sounds like it has some advantages for viewers.
Okay, like what?
Well, imagine no more blackouts.
What really?
No more missing your favorite team's game
Mm.
just because you're in the wrong in the wrong zip code.
Yeah, yeah.
A unified channel could mean more coverage
Mhm.
and easier access for fans all over.
Okay, that sounds great, especially if you travel a lot, but there's got to be a catch, right?
Well, you're right to be skeptical. There are some downsides to think about. One of the biggest worries is competition. We could end up with, one kind of sports coverage.
Oh.
Like we could lose those different viewpoints and styles that make each network unique.
So instead of having ESPN, Fox, and NBC each with their own like flavor,
Right, exactly.
we get this one bland channel.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know about that.
And remember how some people criticize ESPN for only focusing on certain sports?
Yeah.
Well, this unified channel could make that even worse.
You think so?
Yeah, we could see less coverage of, I don't know, maybe women's sports or those less popular sports.
That's a good point.
It's classic, what do they call it, consolidation. Maybe it's efficient, but you end
Okay.
up with less choice, less innovation.
Yeah, like going to a restaurant with only one dish on the menu.
Exactly.
You might like the dish,
Right,
but you'd probably want some options.
for sure.
And this whole merger thing, it could really affect the leagues too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, how much power would they have?
The leagues are not happy about this.
Really?
They like it when networks compete,
Oh, yeah.
bidding against each other for those broadcast rights.
Makes sense.
But this unified channel, that would give the networks a lot of power. They could basically tell the leagues what to do. And that could mean higher costs for everyone.
So the networks team up like some kind of supervillain, and the leagues are left trying to, like, figure out how to survive.
That's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah.
And our analyst thinks the leagues are going to fight back.
Oh, yeah.
They're used to being in charge.
Well, this is all super interesting. It really shows how much things are changing. But we can't forget about ESPN's own its own problems, right?
Oh, right.
They're still trying to figure out this whole streaming thing,
Yeah.
compete with YouTube and Amazon.
Right.
So how are they doing that?
Well, ESPN is trying. They're really putting a lot of money into their platform, ESPN Plus. And they're going beyond just live games, right?
What do you mean?
They've got documentaries, talk shows, behind-the-scenes stuff. They're even trying esports.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they want to be the place to go for anything sports.
But is that enough?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
can they really compete with Netflix and Amazon?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Those companies have so much content,
Right.
it's hard to keep up. And don't forget, ESPN's got their own internal struggles too.
Oh, right. What did our former employees say?
Well, ESPN has had to cut back a lot, layoffs, smaller budgets.
Ah, I see.
It affects, well, everything from the shows they make to the
Oh,
people they hire.
tough business.
Yeah, even for a giant like ESPN.
So they're battling these streaming companies
Yeah.
trying to change and adapt internally.
Ugh.
Now this potential merger thing. It seems like ESPN is at a crossroads.
They are. And the choices they make in the next, I don't know, few years,
Yeah.
they're going to decide their future. Will they go all in on streaming?
Mm-hmm.
Will they do this collaboration thing even with the risks?
Mhm.
Or is there another way forward? We'll have to wait and see.
It's hard to predict. That's what makes this so interesting.
Totally. We're watching a giant company
Yeah.
trying to figure out who they are.
And how to, like, survive.
Exactly. Even those powerful companies, they can be vulnerable.
Wow. I'm on the edge of my seat here. So, uh, before we go to the last part, I got to ask, what do you think
About,
about ESPN? Can they make a comeback?
hmm, I think they have a chance,
Yeah.
but they're going to have to be bold. They're going to have to take some risks.
I wonder what our listeners think.
Me too.
Mm.
Let us know what you think the future holds for ESPN. You can share your thoughts on social media. Just use the hashtag #DeepDiveESPN.
Okay. So we're back for the final part of our ESPN deep dive. We've talked about their history, their struggles, this potential mega merger. It's a lot.
It is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a lot to unpack.
But I keep thinking about this one comment from our media personality. They said ESPN could end up biting the hand that feeds it. What did they even mean?
They were talking about, well, that collaboration with Fox and NBC
Right.
to make that unified channel.
Mhm.
And, it might seem like a good idea,
Yeah.
but it could really backfire.
In what way? How could working with their rivals hurt them?
Well, think about the leagues. The NBA, NFL, all of them.
Yeah.
They actually like it when the networks compete.
Oh, right, for those broadcast rights.
Exactly. More competition means they get more money.
Makes sense.
But this unified channel, it would give all the power to the networks.
So instead of like bidding wars,
Right.
the networks can just tell the leagues, hey, take it or leave it.
Pretty much. And that could mean, fewer games on TV,
Mhm.
maybe even like worse quality. And it would probably cost us more too.
Ugh, that's not good at all. But wait, wouldn't a unified channel also mean no more blackouts? Like, I could finally watch my team no matter where I am.
That's true. That's the tricky part.
So there are some good things and some bad things.
Exactly. Easier access to games is great,
Yeah.
but we have to think about, what we might lose. Like different opinions, different styles of coverage.
Oh, I see what you mean. So it's like, we might get more games,
Hmm.
but they might not be as good.
And they might be more expensive. It's a tough choice.
It feels like the whole future of sports is like up in the air right now.
Yeah, it's a wild time. You've got these huge companies, the streaming giants,
Right.
and then the viewers, us,
Mm-hmm.
and then, maybe this big merger. It's hard to say what will happen.
That's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. I mean, we're watching a giant company like ESPN
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to survive.
And it's not just about ESPN.
What do you mean?
It's about how we all watch sports,
Oh, yeah.
where we spend our money,
Right.
what we want to see.
Yeah.
It all matters.
So it's like we're not just watching this happen. We're
Right.
part of it.
Exactly. So as we wrap this up, here's something to think about.
Yeah.
What do you care about most when you watch sports?
Good question.
Do you want, easy access, any game, anytime?
Yeah.
Or is it more important to have like different opinions, in-depth analysis, all that?
I guess it depends.
And, think about the big picture. What do you want the future of sports to look like?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Do we want a few giant companies controlling everything?
Mm.
Or do we want more competition, more voices?
Tough questions.
They are,
Mm.
but they're important. The choices we make now will shape the future of sports.
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive, but it feels like the conversation is just starting. What do you think?
I agree. And we want to hear from you. Tell us your thoughts, your predictions, anything. Use the hashtag #DeepDiveESPN.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.